earlier class the performance of composites. The performance is measured by means of various property studies. The strength of required the composites which are used in automotive and aerospace applications is studied in earlier classes. Starts from strength to weight ratio, fatigue and fracture toughness, impact toughness, and crustworthiness. The last class we have seen about corrosion and wear. The corrosion and wear is the most important property because the reliability of the structure is very much important. Based on that, the corrosiveness of the material, and why we need to be study the corrosion of especially a polymer composite means it's not similar to that isotropic material because it is an anisotropic and it have the various constitutional elements like matrices and fiber. If any of these properties are going to be deteriorate because of some various environmental effects, then the corrosion is very quickly happen and the strength of the material is drastically reduced. And the second aspect is wear. The wear may be related to the fatigue and other aspects. The most of them the abrasion types of wears, but it can be accelerated because of various the combination of the constitution of materials. So now we move on to that another very important properties because of the polymer composites are used in various applications in environmental conditions. Apart from automotive and aerospace industries, it's purely affected by and the absorbability of the water molecules. So the water absorption is one among the properties, and the next property is flammability and lightning productions. So the today's class we have seen about water absorption and flammability. The time permits, we will take it on the lightning production. The lightning is also very much important while it is applied in aerospace industries. So the drawback of an aerospace industry, the utilization of aluminum alloy is it have the poor lightning productions. So it can be enhanced by means of various protective coating, but in a case of an polymer composites with ceramic coated or carbon impregnated with the polymer matrices, it can be easily achieved. So the water absorption and flammability and lightning production is mostly used for in a case of the polymer application in automotive and aerospace industries. Okay. So what is water absorption? The water absorption refers to the water molecules penetrating and accumulating within the composite material. So these figures indicated about the matrix and fiber, and this region indicating that the joint. It means how the fibers are joined to the matrices. When the water molecules or water traps are enter into that matrix because of its high porosities, because the composites having the porous in nature when compared with metallic materials. So this porosity allow them to absorb some amount of water molecule inside. This creating the effect of and because of its cellulose effect. The fiber, if it is made up of natural fiber, so the cellulose is one among the material of the fiber materials actually. So the in the matrix may be an non-absorbing water molecule. Because of its porosity, it can allow that water molecules inside the up to the fiber regions. So the fiber may be an natural fibers which are all cellulose content. It can easily absorb. Instead of hydrobolic, it may be absorb the water molecule inside. So that the fiber swells once the hemicellulose absorb the moisture. So there is a cellulose of material which can be absorb the moisture content and it can be swelled. And second one is the water molecule egress from the fiber matrices interface region. So after certain period of time, it may be relieved from the fiber content to the matrix region where the fiber and the matrices having the covalently joined together. So the water molecules leach from the fiber and causes debonding of phenomenon. When it is leaching from the fibers, it can creating that deep bonding in nature due to the internal stress development of the moisture presented in between the region. Then the natural fiber matrices are debond. So these are the various phenomena because of water absorption. So what is water absorption? The water absorption refers to water molecules penetrating and accumulating within the composite material. The significant importance to of studying the water absorption is understanding the water absorption is crucial because it can degrade the mechanical properties of the polymer composites, particularly those within the natural fibers. So most of them, because of sustainability and other aspects, nowadays we are looking for the sustainable material which are all derived from the nature. So the fibers may be most probably taken from the naturally available fibers, impregnated in the matrices to enhance the properties. The fiber types may be a natural fiber, especially those rich in cellulose are more prone to water absorption due to their hydrophilic effect nature. These are the factors influencing for the water absorption. The first and foremost is a fiber type, and second is a matrix type. Because of hydrophobicity and hydrophobicity, the polymer matrix also play a role in that water absorption property. And interface adhesion, a poor adhesion between the fiber and matrix can lead to water penetration and swelling. And environmental conditions like temperature, humidity, and the immersion time affect the water absorption rate. So these are the factors influencing the water absorption. The first and foremost is the fiber type. When the fibers are made up of non-synthetic or natural fiber, it's prone to creating the more amount of water absorption. And matrix type, some of the matrices are lead to an water absorbing ability. And interface adhesion, poor adhesion between the fiber and matrices can lead to the water penetrating and it can be easily absorbed by the fiber for the swelling. Environmental condition, the temperature, humidity and immersion time affect the water absorption rate. Okay. So whatever we discussed in the earlier slide, like the factors influencing for water absorption, which will creating the more amount of other phenomena which may be called as a diffusion, swelling, capillary action and leaching. So the water molecules move through the composite material driven by the concentration gradient. It means the concentration gradient in which the highest amount of concentration play in the environment and lowest amount of concentration plays in the porous nature of the composite material. So because of this, the pressure or the concentration gradient, the diffusion of the material or the water molecule can happen inside the composite material. And second one is actually swelling. When the water is absorbed, the fibers and the matrix can swell, leading to internal stresses and potential debonding of the interfaces. When the water molecules absorbed by the fiber, it can be swell, it's creating the internally developed stresses because the matrix and the fibers are combined together because of the covalent band between them. When the water absorbed, the size of the fiber is going to be swelled or increased, it will creating the internal stresses and leads to the debonding of the material. And for capillary action, the water can be drawn into the voids and microcracks within the composite through the capillary action. You know what is capillary action? Because of the smallest porous nature, the vacuum can be generated inside the porous. So it will creating the pressure drop. Because of those, the capillary action of the water molecules enter into the microcracks or the porous material. And the last one is a leach. The water soluble substances from the fiber surfaces can be leached out, further affecting the interface and leading to the degradation of the material. So these are the various mechanisms of water absorption, and due to the water absorption, it leads to the degradation of the material properties. So this is a simple example. We are not looking in depth about the properties degradation, and one is the water uptake. One is a root time of the second with respect to the thickness of the material. So most probably we study about the density and as well as the thickness of the material before and water after water absorption. And this is for the square root of time with respect to the time how it is increased, and the moisture content also going to be increased with respect to the time of impressions, and because of the porosity it can also going to be increased. So what are the different phenomena or factors? One is the time of impression, another one is the increasing the water uptake. Okay, so in order to test how much amount of water is absorbed by the polymer, we need to be standardize some of the testing procedure that is called as a water immersion test. The specimens in a particular size are immersed in a water for a specific time, and the weight gain is measured to determine the water absorption. The ASTM T570 and ASTM 5229, these are the two standards are used nowadays. The standard test method for determining the water absorption of the plastics are ASTM 570 focuses on 24 hours water absorption, and ASTM 5229 providing the procedure for moisture absorption properties and equilibrium conditioning. So until the saturation conditions, we are looking for the water absorption, but for the localized period of time of 24 hours of water absorption can be observed by ASTM T570. And the last one is called as a diffusion model. In order to determine the property of water absorption, some mathematical model can be developed to identify or quantify the property of the material. That is called as a diffusion model. A mathematical model can be used to describe the diffusion process and predict the water absorption behavior. That is diffusion model. So the diffusion model is most probably they are using a fixed law. What is fixed law? A fixed law is identifying the movement of particles. So movement of particles is called a diffusion flux from higher to the lower concentration is directly proportional to the particle concentration gradient. It means it's creating the two important parameters. One is actually dou by and dou x. So J is directly proportional to dou by dou x, where dou by is change in the concentration of the particle and dou x is actually change in the position. So the dou by dou x concentration is indicating the diffusion flux. You know what is flux? Flux is an amount which can be transmitted from one location to another location. That flux is higher and higher, it means the diffusion is higher. So dou is directly proportional to, or J is directly proportional to dou by dou x, or in terms of minus d into dou by dx. It is called negative potential gradient. The fixed law can effectively describe the diffusion process and predict the water absorption behavior in various materials, including the food grains and polymers. What are the factors affecting the water absorption? So some of the factors already we have discussed about temperature, material properties and other aspects. It also going to play a role in that diffusion models actually. So the key parameters we observed from the diffusion models are the moisture ratio, that is MR, and effective moisture diffusivity, that is D, and convective mass transfer coefficient K. These are the three parameters we can observe from the diffusion model. What is moisture ratio? It represents the amount of water absorbed by the material. And effective moisture diffusivity is a measure of how easily water moves through the material. And the third one is a convective mass transfer coefficient, describes the mass transfer rate of the material surface. I think we have an idea about the mass transfer or the temperature transfer coefficient, and similar to that, these also transfer the masses from one location to the another location because of this diffusivity of the material. And we looking for the one of the example, especially in a natural fiber composite. So water absorption behavior and impact strength of canaf Kevlar reinforced epoxy composite material. So how they are composite materials are fabricated? Very simplest process, they are using a Scanlay method. The Scanlay method was adopted to fabricate the laminates of Kevlar of 129 and woven canaf in epoxy resin. The woven canaf and Kevlar fabrics were Scanlay with epoxy matrices by mixing epoxy resin and amine hardener in the ratio of 2:1. So we are using epoxy resin and amine hardener. The size of the material, most probably we are using a steel mold for making that. That is, the size is 20 cross 20 centimeter square. So this is the size we required for making that composite for water absorption test. So initially, before you going for water absorption test, we need to be know about how much amount of porosity it's have. It means how much amount of void is presented. So if we know that theoretical value of density of the material and the experimental value of density of material, from that we can able to know. Normally the density of material theoretically is high when compared with the experimental. So if the experimental density is very less, it will be creating the void contents in more and more. So where the rho theoretical minus rho experimental divided by rho theoretical in 100%. where rho theoretically is equal to 1 divided by Wf by Bf. It means you know that which is called as a mixture, right? So where W is the fiber weight fraction and Wm is the matrix weight fraction and rho F is the fiber density and rho M is the matrix density. So the next thing is you need to be know about how much amount of water is absorbed. So normally we are taking the 3 samples for each test in order to get the deviations between the various results. So 3 samples of each composites were immersed in a distilled water at a room temperature of 32 or 24 degrees Celsius, whatever it may be, after more than 300 hours. The samples were removed from the water, wiped with a clean tissue paper, which are all the presence of water molecules on the surface is going to be removed. So before that, we need to be weight and thickness value was measured. The percentage of water absorption was calculated by the weight differences using the following equation. That is, We of T is equal to 100% of Wt minus Wo divided by Wo, where W is the relative weight change of water absorption percentage, W is the weight at the time of T, and W naught is the initial weight. So if you know the initial weight and final weight, from that we can able to identify the fraction of the water absorption in terms of the percentile. The percentage of thickness swelling is also may be calculated from the thickness how it is varying. So some of the composites can be swelled, some of them not to be swelled because of the depend upon the matrix concentration. If the matrix are also going to be play a vital role for water absorption, then the thickness going to be increased. So similar weight of initial and final weight of water absorption, the initial and final thickness also being considered for measuring the thickness variation or swelling. Okay. So this is the tabulated property of whatever we observe. So these are the various different types of samples with respect to the volume fraction or volume concentration. So we are using the rule of mixture, then we identify other factors. So that H1, H3, H5 and Canaf and Kevlar samples can be taken, and weight percentage of fiber and Canaf is, and along with the density and the void content can be identified with respect to that the previous the formulas whatever we have studied, and based on that we can know about the void content percentage. If the increasing the void content percentage as well as the increasing the time of immersion, the amount of weight is going to be high and high. So after certain period of time, it's not going to be absorbed any amount of moisture content or water absorbed. Water is not going to be absorbed. So up to that level of 20 hours, it can be considered for various material of, especially for a natural fiber, Canaf and Kevlar. And water absorption property of the composites where H1, H3 and H3 depend upon the different volume fraction. H1 is having only less amount of water absorption 6.34, and for H3 and H5 which have more amount of water absorption rate. It depends upon the volume fraction of the various material contents. And Canaf and Kevlar are having only 9.46 and 7.53 water absorption property. Now the diffusion coefficient is also going to be calculated. The ability of the water molecules, because it's a quantified value, from that only we can able to simply explain about the ability of the composite material for absorption. The diffusion coefficient shows the ability of water molecules to penetrate inside the composites for the initial part of the absorption phenomena. The mass of water m percentage absorbed in time T can be written as a percentage of mass of water absorbed at saturation condition. So that is called m infinity. So m infinity is a saturated water absorption content. It was calculated using the following equations. So md by m naught is taken as 4 by L. L is a thickness of the material, length of the material, where L is a thickness of the specimen, and mt is a water absorbed in time, and T is a time, and the mass percentage on those. So L is a thickness and m is a mass percentage and T is a diffusivity we are going to be find out. So from that we are finding out the diffusivity or diffusion rate. The coefficient of diffusions can be identified. D equal to pi into K L by 4 m infinity squares, right? By observing this equation, we can get the idea. So the thickness of swelling with respect to the time is also going to be increased up to the 20 hours of time, and above is going to be drastically reduced. And after that, there is very important phenomena you need to be know about how the impact strength or other mechanical properties are going to be deteriorated because of the water absorption. So the impact strength is going to be higher in rate of without absorption of water. With increasing the water absorption, you know that H3 and H5 are more absorbing more amount of water molecules because of high amount of diffusivity, and when compared with H1. So the samples which are having the these are all hybrid, H1, H3 hybrid, H5 are hybrid, and Canaf and Kevlar, and FXC is the raw sample, or which may be called as a mother sample. So here we can able to get before and after how it is deteriorated the impact strength. So that's why the water absorption is most important phenomena for knowing about the property of the material.